So please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, we are very pleased this morning to have one of our own who will be giving the invocation, our Senator from District 17. If there are no objections, Senator Cheryl Kagan, please rise for the invocation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I am pinch hitting for my rabbi, Adam Raskin. Something came up and he's not with us this morning, so I wanted to offer a few words as we near the finish line. First off, today is the 1-year anniversary of the crash of the Dali and the loss of the Key Bridge. I want to remember and offer condolences to those who were lost, the families, friends, small businesses and nonprofits who were affected by that devastating loss, and commend everybody who has helped to work towards rebuilding it. We are in the midst of March Madness, go Terps, but there's another meaning here, which is the madness of the final weeks of session. So let us remember to be kind to each other. Let's be a little gentle with each other. We're all stressed, and in addition to legislative matters, maybe political matters, maybe something on social media, we all have something going on at home, whether it's a sick pet or a beloved relative in hospice, a challenge with your home. There are all sorts of issues that we're all dealing with, so let's just be really mindful of that as we get through these final days. Our state motto is about strong words and gentle deeds. No, I got it wrong. Sorry. Yes, I got that right. Senator Simon. Okay. And then the last thing I want to mention is, again, our country, our world is seeing such extraordinary division, hate, violence, anti-Semitism, homophobia, Islamophobia. And we just really have to be mindful, regardless of our political and ideological differences. Let's try to work together whenever we can. And with that, please join me in saying Amen.
All right. If there are no objections, we'd like to journalize the invocation this morning and thank the Senator for pinch hitting today and her kind and gentle words to kick us off this morning. Thank you. All right, has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take, almost, Vice Chair from Judicial Proceedings. Thank you. Clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is again back in session. We do have one resolution here. Let's begin with the Senator from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. Today we welcome a group of young men and women from Boonesboro, the We the People State Championship team. So We the People is a comprehensive curriculum of students covering the history and principles of constitutional democracy in the United States. We the People culminates with a simulated congressional hearings where students testify before a panel of judges acting as members of Congress. Colleagues, this is not their first championship, not their second, not their third. This is their 10th consecutive Maryland State Championship, which they won on Monday, December the 16th, 2024 here in Annapolis. There are 28 students here represented, including one of our pages, Misha Slattery, led by their coach, Ashley Vasic, and Principal Dr. Kay. Mr. President, I request that the clerk read the resolution in full.
Clerk will read the resolution in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Boonesboro High School We the People team in recognition of winning the We the People State Championship representing Boonesboro High School. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 26th day of March, 2025.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk, thank you, will take the call. To the championship students at Boonesboro High School, We the People team, the Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates your We the People State Championship. Congratulations and well done. Thank you all so much for being with us. I think the only thing that got me into college was Model OAS, so a little bit different. So but we brought home the championship back in 2001. It was yeah, fair enough. So keep up the great work. All right. Busy day today. Still a lot of work happening in committees. Just thank you, senators. We're starting off obviously a little bit late today, and was joined by the senator from District 6 to start the morning at the Key Bridge, which was truly a kind of hard to describe. Kind of showing up a year later, it's hard to believe it's been a year since that tragedy, and certainly the senator from Rockville and Gaithersburg harped on it today. One thing I did forget to mention, amongst the tragedy and then the terrible loss of life, I wanted to say, but wanted to pass along now, I was looking for some of the work that we were able to do at the very end. So I think, we have 13 days left in this session. Last year, it was a similar time frame, and within that time period, we introduced the PORT Act, which, thanks to the work of the Department of Labor and Department of Commerce and the Comptroller's Office, so it was over 38,000 payments made to individuals, small businesses, and businesses to stay at the port, which totaled about $55 million. That kind of kept food on the table, kept people stable, was able to navigate in the midst of what was a remarkable tragedy. And we thought it was going to be an 11-month process of trying to get the port back open. Ended up being 11 weeks and was pretty incredible. So kind of proof of what can be done. And a year later, here we stand, kind of with the port back open. It didn't come in first, but it did come in second, which is still kind of remarkable that after an 11th month shutdown, it was still able to be second on the East Coast, which is incredible and a testament to the work that we were able to do to sustain and bring business back. So we're able to do big things when I put our minds to it and work together. So thank you all for tolerating our little bit of a delay today. So do we have any other introductions today? Senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce you all to an intern in my office, Caitlin Zhao. Now, Caitlin started out in St. Mary's County Public School. She then went to the STEM Academy. She graduated from Great Mills in Lexington Park. She is now a senior at the University of Maryland, pursuing a BA in Public Policy and Family Science and a Master's of Public Policy. She also spent her summer interning for the governor in his legislative office. So we appreciate all the work, and welcome to the Senate.
Welcome. Thanks for being here with us today. Yes, Senator from the 18th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a constituent here watching Democracy in Action. She comes every year. Her name is Barbara Mullet. She is a wonderful advocate and attorney. She especially works on issues related to protecting our seniors. Please welcome my constituent, Barbara Mullets.
Welcome. Additional introductions. We are also joined by our Doctor of the Day, Dr. Erin Maury, is a rheumatologist at the Mid-Atlantic Rheumatology in Millersville and guest from the 46th District. So thank you so much for being with us, and we appreciate your work as always. Good to see you again. All right, any further introductions? If not, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We've got a little bit of work here. Let's start with the Committee on Judicial Proceedings. This is report number 27. These are going to be the Senate bills. I suspect we have the House bills after. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 333, Senator West, Criminal Procedure, Victims and Witnesses Out of Court Statement of Child to Forensic Interviewer, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill generally expands statutory evidentiary provisions that authorize the admission of an out-of-court statement in a juvenile court or criminal proceeding made by a child victim or witness to certain professionals to also be applicable to statements made to a forensic interviewer, and the bill defines forensic interviewer. There's one committee amendment which just adds a sponsor to the bill. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I hereby move for the adoption of the committee amendment as well as the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 333 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 392, Senator Waldstreicher, bicycles, play vehicles, and unicycles, authorization and requirements, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the Vice Chair as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is identical to House Bill 375, which we'll hear in a second. The bill changes the default for where people can ride bikes on sidewalks while retaining the ability of our counties to make that final determination. There's one amendment. The amendment adds to the short title of the bill. Mr. President, I move the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
Many unicycles that are out there. All right. Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 392 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 485, Senator Muse, Prince George's County Speed Monitoring Systems, Maryland Route 210, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as amended, this bill is identical to House Bill 349. The bill establishes an escalating penalty structure for speed monitoring, that is speed camera violations in Maryland, Route 210 in Prince George's County. The maximum penalties range from $40 to $425, depending on the excessiveness of the speed. There are two committee amendments. The first one is technical, and the second alters the penalties and removes from the bill an extension of the authorization for speed cameras on Route 210. A move for favorable.
All right. The floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the
Mr. President.
oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, recognize the senator from the 28th on the amendments.
Could I have a question?
Question for the floor leader.
On
Senator may proceed.
bill? Yeah, thank you for this bill, Senator. 210 Indian Highway is a terrible route. Most of the problems caused by stress and the backlog and backups and the just terrible lack of capacity on the roads out of southern Maryland. And I remember I was driving to Washington, D.C. for Black Caucus event at the White House last year. It took me 2.5 hours to get from my home to the White House. Without traffic, it would be 35 minutes. And so it's really terrible, especially during the rush hour periods. And there was absolutely no accidents that day that I saw on that entire route. And I'm just really concerned about the entire roadway. But I'm curious, in this bill, does it call for more speed cameras on the road, or?
No, this just deals with the level of fines that are given out. We've had people get $40 tickets for going 118. One was going 160 miles an hour. We're just trying to get the message across as best we can that we're concerned about it and that people will pay something that is above just sending in a $40 ticket and it continues to move.
Okay. So you're saying no matter what the speed is, currently it's just $40.
That's what it is currently, that's correct.
And this bill will change it to
Levels of,
all the way up
depending
from
on
40,
the excessiveness of the speed.
40, you said $40 to $400?
Right, that's correct.
Yeah. There's a concern among my constituents that the cameras are stacked basically close to the end of the Prince George's County line at the so that it mainly picks on Charles County folks coming on that road.
Gotcha.
Have you heard that
No, I have
complaint in the
not.
past?
No.
Yeah, I've heard it a lot. So we're kind of concerned that these speed cameras are really in the spot where a lot of the problems are not.
Well, if you look at that part of 210 from Swan Creek down to the Charles County line, that's where most of the accidents occur because it's a straight shot and there are very few lights in, between with long distance where people can speed that way.
Yeah. And one thing my constituents talk about a lot also is people know where the speed cameras are. And so you come up to the speed camera, you slow down, and you get outside the range, and then you speed up until you get to the next camera, then you slow down, and then you speed up again. And, it's like we kind of wonder about the efficiency of that system. Travel in Europe, they have what you call a variable speed system, where it doesn't matter if you speed up, speed down. The one camera take your license plate and using algebra, by the time you get to the next spot, it calculates your average speed. And if you really speed up, it doesn't really matter. They calculate how
Correct.
long it takes to go from point A to point B and give you a ticket based on that.
Right.
I know this is an initiative because the problem is a lot of it is in that section of 210 that is in Prince George's County. But has the county thought about a modern system like a variable speed camera to
We
really
are looking at
produce
that. I've
safety?
heard about, and we are looking at different kinds of technology. But even as it is, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tickets giving out, so it is affecting somebody, and somebody's slowing down. So yeah, we're looking at other technologies. That's one. There's another that they're looking at. But yes, that one I definitely am familiar with.
Yeah, okay. And maybe we could do a field trip to England or one of those countries and see how it works. I mean, the road is open and people are going really at the speed limit. It's amazing. I was like,
Hey,
speed up, please. There's.
I'll go wherever you want to
Definitely
go if you pay for it. I'm ready.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very
for
much,
the-
and thank you.
All right, on the amendments, any further discussion on the amendments? Any objections to the amendments? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 485 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 912, Charles County Senators, Charles County Off-Highway Recreational Vehicles, Regulation and Enforcement, favorable.
Recognize the senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 912 is actually identical to House Bill 1283, and it authorizes Charles County to regulate an operation and off-highway recreational vehicles. There are no committee amendments, and I recommend that we pass the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments or any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 912 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 925, Senator Smith, Criminal Law, Controlled Dangerous Substance and Firearms, favorable.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This bill establishes reduced penalties for cannabis-related violations of prohibitions under Section 5-612 of the Criminal Law Article and under Section 5-613 of the Criminal Law Article. It also authorizes specific individuals incarcerated for violations under both of those titles to file an application for a modification or reduction of a mandatory sentence. It also modifies penalties and crime classifications for specified firearms-related offenses, and it authorizes a person at least 21 to manufacture a personal use amount of cannabis products or concentrated cannabis as specified. The bill also specifies in statute that with the execution of a violation involving cannabis, a violation of the volume dealer statute is a felony. Mr. President, there are no committee amendments. I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Recognize the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I just ask the floor leader a couple of questions?
Floor leader to yield. Senator may proceed.
Just to be sure I'm understanding a couple things in the bill. There's stuff in here about volatile solvents, and I assume that has to do with the allowing for someone to do some manufacturing of cannabis related. Is this paraphernalia in their home, or is it?
Yeah, so it excludes that, for the use of making things like oils or topical, things like that within the personal use amount, but it excludes the use, it prohibits the use of
Prohibits the use of volatile. I was trying to read through the bill. Great.
Yeah.
There's
You don't want like a meth lab happening.
Good. No, very good. We agree. On the issue of drug kingpins, so the bill adds penalties for drug kingpins outside of. Does it add penalties for drug kingpins?
No, what it does is it gets rid of the mandatory minimums, but it creates a ceiling. Instead of saying a mandatory minimum of, for instance, for the cannabis, instead of a mandatory minimum of 5 years, it says that it's you can go up to 10 years. So it
allows for higher but removes the minimum.
Correct. And it takes down the financial penalty from $100,000 to $50,000 for that section.
Okay, is this for all drug kingpins or
No,
for?
That section right there, that's on cannabis.
Just
So
cannabis.
That's cannabis there. And then In all candor, the other section, which is on page 5, which is 5-612, that's for, this is for the disparities in dealing with crack cocaine, so it deals with that. So
it brings that down because it makes it more in line with what's cocaine currently? Is that,
in
I
line
saw
with-
cocaine in the bill, I was just trying to understand the connection.
That's right. It's in line with what we did with JRA a couple of years ago in 2015-16. It's in line with that, but again, it gets rid of those mandatory minimums, but still allows for a maximum sentence.
And the judge would have the discretion if it was a drug kingpin to say you do need to serve more time because of the circumstances versus maybe somebody who falls under the statute, but there's some extenuating circumstances. Is that the idea?
Exactly right. So now you can. It's not exceeding 20 years, but you can go up to 20 years, and it's a $100,000 fine or both. But there's no mandatory minimum anymore. It's just a maximum of 20.
So no floor, higher maximum would be fair to say for that.
More flexibility in sentencing, yes, but no mandatory minimum.
And then it does have provisions in here to deal with stolen and possession of or stealing of or trafficking of firearms, correct?
So that's correct. So it changes it from a misdemeanor to a felony.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. Senator from District 4.
Mr. President, if the floor leader would yield
Floor
for a
to
question,
yield.
please.
Senator may proceed.
So, in regards to the firearms, I know that this bill changed it to a felony at this time, and I think that one of the discussions that was had was about the threat that these stolen firearms create to our communities versus the actual value of purchase, because currently the felony guidelines for a theft is over $1,500. Is that correct?
That's right. That's under the theft statute. Yes, that's right.
And then this would create an area where most handguns that are purchased are under $1,500. Is that also safe to say?
That's a fair characterization. Yes, Senator.
So would this new language and the way that this has been put in there, would this then create for our communities, I guess, a standing that, or an understanding that we now are taking this in a manner that the seriousness of that theft and the threat that that item presents to our communities is outweighing the actual value of the handgun, the weapon?
Senator, I think that's a perfect way to say that. Obviously, it's an inherently dangerous object. I was looking at Johns Hopkins, Bloomberg, their public health. They're treating gun violence as a public health issue, obviously. And just last year, we're looking at 539 homicides, 269 suicides. It's a leading cause of death. Gun violence is a leading cause of death in children in Maryland. So yes, I think that's right.
And we have a lot, and hopefully this would be a measure that would make people at least think twice before grabbing or stealing a handgun. So I thank you. Thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion? If not, any objections to the favorable report? If not, favorable report having been adopted, are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 925 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 941, Senator Sidnor, Transportation-Related Fines and Tolls Income-Based Installment Payment Plans, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you very much. As amended, this bill is identical to House Bill 1465. The bill requires the Maryland Transportation Authority to establish an installment payment plan program for the payment of certain video tolls and civil penalties. A person is eligible to apply to participate in the program if the person accumulates at least $300 in unpaid video tolls and civil penalties. There are 2 committee amendments. The first is technical. The second conforms this bill to House Bill 1465 by removing provisions applying to the Department of Transportation and provisions requiring participants to meet certain income requirements. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the favorable committee report as well as the amendments.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. The floor leader would yield,
Floor to
please.
yield. Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. As related to the bill as amended now, it looks like it's taken out income eligibility and just now says eligibility. How does one become eligible for these installment plans?
Again, once you hit this $300 threshold, you're eligible.
So all you have to do is achieve $300 in video tolls and Is this traffic citations as well too?
No, it's video tolls.
Just video tolls. So if you get $300 in tolls, you can apply or ask the MDOT if you can go on an installment plan.
That's correct.
And what are the payment terms on that? Is there an interest?
The administration is also required to put together some rules and guidelines, and really they currently do this. It's just not statutorily being done.
The MDOT already allows for
They do some of this stuff. Yes, that's correct.
for
For
tolls and fines.
We're just codifying what they currently do.
Okay, so they're doing it already, is what you're stating.
Yes.
They already have that in place. And
Yes.
why does MDOT come in with a letter that says that there is a significant operational impact to MDOT? Current payment plans offered by MDOT are on a very limited basis related to vehicle registration.
I
So
believe
that was what
MDOT
we,
was taken out of the bill, right? Yeah, they were taken out of the bill.
So who's doing this now?
It's the Transportation Authority.
And does the Transportation Authority, they do have the ability already to collect on
Correct.
installment plans?
Mm-hmm.
I say that's why MDOT's off.
Right, that's why we took them out.
Okay, so then it's just tolls, and they're doing it already. And do we know if, again, are there payment terms on this? Is there interest, there's fees, or anything on top of that, or just?
I believe they still are required to put together the regulations in Comar.
Even though they're doing it already? That's what we're asking them to do, essentially?
Right, we're just codifying it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Floor Leader. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion on the amendments? Any
Mr.
objection?
President?
Yes, Senator.
I have a floor amendment.
Is it a substitute amendment or is it an additional amendment?
It's an additional amendment.
Okay, let's take up the, on the committee amendments, any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Pages will collect and distribute the floor leader's additional amendment. Give us just a moment. All right, 728. Yep. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you very much. This was an amendment that was actually requested by the Transportation Authority to make certain that if things were sent to collections that they wouldn't have a fiscal impact. So it's just a clarifying amendment.
All right.
I move the amendment.
Senator moves the technical amendment. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 941 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 992, Senator West, Corporations and Associations, revisions favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing Senator from the 42nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the annual bill brought to us to clean up corporate laws by the business law section of the State Bar Association. As amended, the bill is identical to House Bill 1171, which we'll hear in a few minutes. The bill establishes three things. First, a process for the transfer of assets that are collateral for securing a mortgage pledge or security interest without the approval of stockholders. Secondly, it establishes certain exceptions to the process for the transfer of assets that are secured collateral, again, without the approval of the stockholders. And thirdly, it repeals statutory provisions that specify what must be included in the articles of merger if a limited partnership, limited liability company, or a partnership is a party to the articles. There's one committee amendment which just conforms the bill to House Bill 1171 by making a stylistic change. There was no opposition to the bill. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I hereby move the adoption of the committee amendment as well as the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 992 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 858, Senator Henson, State Public Transit Service and Stations Exclusion for Assault and Bodily Injury, re-referred to Finance.
All right, this one appears to be a re-referral. Any objections to the re-referral? Without objection, the bill will be re-referred to the Finance Committee. All right, let's stick with judicial proceedings, calendar number 28. Looks Looks like some cross files. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 349, Prince George's Delegation, Prince George's County Speed Monitoring Systems, Maryland Route 210, PG 306-25, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the senator from the 26th.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is identical to Senate Bill 485, and it is very close to the Charles County line. The bill establishes an escalating penalty structure for speed monitoring with the speed cameras violations in Maryland, Bill 210 in Prince George's County. Favorable with one committee amendment. The amendment alters the penalties.
All right, Senator moves for the adoption of one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. And are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 349 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 375, Delegate D. Jones, Bicycles, Play Vehicles, Unicycles, Authorizations and Requirements, Jay's Law, favorable.
Back to the unicycles. Vice Chair.
That's right, Mr. President. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 392. It switches the default for bikes on sidewalks while retaining the ability of counties to decide. There are no committee amendments. I move the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 375 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 413, Delegate Moon, Criminal Law, Controlled Dangerous Substances and Firearms, favorable.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. House Bill 413 is identical to Senate Bill 925, which I presented on the pre-calendar. There are no committee amendments, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 413 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 442, Delegate Simpson, Criminal Procedure, Victims and Witnesses, Out-of-Court Statement of Child to Forensics Interviewer, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the House cross file of Senate Bill 333, which I just described about 4 minutes ago. There are no committee amendments to this bill. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I hereby move for the adoption of the committee amendment as well as the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 442 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1171, Delegate Ampry, Corporations and Associations, Revisions, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is the House cross file of Senate Bill 992, which I just described about 3 minutes ago. There are no committee amendments to this bill. There's no opposition. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I hereby move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1171 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1283, Charles County Delegation, Charles County Off-Highway Recreational Vehicles, Regulation and Enforcement, favorable.
Recognize the senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 912, which I just read across and we voted on. There are no committee amendments, and therefore I move that we request a favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1283 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1465, Delegate Stewart, Transportation-Related Tolls, Installment Payment Plans, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 44th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill was identical to Senate Bill 941 as it came out of our committee. As mentioned, this bill requires Maryland Transportation Authority to establish an installment payment plan. There are no committee amendments on this particular bill, and I would move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
There is, yes. All right. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
Mr. President, this amendment puts it in the same posture as Senate Bill 941. I move the amendment.
All right, the senator moves the amendment. Recognize the minority leader.
Mr. President, move that the bill and the amendment lie over under the rule.
All right, it's not the 83rd day yet, so the senator's amendment is automatic. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. All right. Let's see. Do we have another one on this one? We do not. All right, let's go to judicial proceedings. This is report number 29. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1, Delegate Ebersol, Department of Transportation, Human Trafficking Awareness, Training and Response, See Someone, Save Someone Act, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing Senator from Capital City is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is identical to Senate Bill 7, which passed the Senate unanimously. The bill requires the Maryland Department of Transportation, in consultation with stakeholders, to develop or identify and implement a training program that includes a curriculum on the identification and reporting of suspected human trafficking. There is one committee amendment. Amendment number 1 conforms the bill to the Senate Bill 7 by removing amendments adopted by the House. Move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 123, Chair, Judiciary Committee, Maryland Correctional Training Commission, membership, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing Senator from the 26th District as the floor
Thank you,
leader.
Mr. President and colleagues. As amended, this departmental bill is identical to Senate Bill 197, which passed the Senate unanimously. The bill expands the membership of the Correctional Training Commission to include the Director of the Division of Parole and Probation and one parole and probation employee of the state, recommended by the exclusive representative for parole and probation employees as specified there. Two amendments. First is technical. Second conforms the bill to Senate Bill 197 by specifying that the parole and probation employee may not designate another person to serve in their stead. Move favorable on the bill and the amendments.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 123 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 343, Delegate Stewart, Motor Vehicles, Speed Monitoring Systems, Statement and Certification of Violations, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 390, which we passed earlier this session. The bill authorizes a technician employed by or under the contract with an agency, rather than a duly authorized law enforcement officer, to review and sign certificates alleging a violation by a recorded speed camera. The bill also requires a duly authorized law enforcement officer or a technician employed by or under the contract with an agency to complete reasonable training specific to the speed cameras before certifying any certificates and violations. Mr. President, there are no committee amendments to move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 343 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 516, Delegate Corman, Motor Vehicles, Automated Enforcement Programs, Privacy Protections, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 516 is similar to SB 381, which passed this body unanimously. It has to do with putting some privacy parameters around all the automated enforcement programs. There are no committee amendments. I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments, or are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 516 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 528, Baltimore County Delegation, Baltimore County Vehicle Laws, Private Roadways and Residential Communities, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the senator from the 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is identical to Senate Bill 915, which passed the Senate unanimously. This local Baltimore County bill provides that for 3 years from the effective date, a person may not violate any provision of the Maryland vehicle law while driving on a private roadway located within Queen Anne Village in Baltimore County. There's one committee amendment which conforms the bill to Senate Bill 915 by making stylistic changes. There was no opposition. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I hereby move the adoption of the committee amendment as well as the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 528 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 809, Delegate Griffith, out-of-home placement providers, individuals enrolled in higher education and vocational training programs, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the senator from Harford County as the floor leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 809 has one amendment so that it conforms to Senate Bill 765, which I believe passed out of here unanimously. And it's a good little bill that allows people that are in out-of-home placements when they're on break from college or vocational training to return home to that place of residency. So there was one amendment just to correct a typo. It was a unanimous vote. I move the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 809 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to 31. Report 31. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 39, Delegate Farr, Public Health, Repeal of Prohibition on Transfer of Human Immunodeficiency Virus, Carlton R. Smith Act, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This bill repeals the misdemeanor prohibition against and associated penalty for knowingly transferring or attempting to transfer HIV to another. The bill is identical to Senate Bill 356, which passed the Senate. There are no committee amendments. I'd move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 39 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 259, Chair, Judiciary Committee, Public Safety, Statewide DNA Database Systems, DNA Collection and Penalties, Alterations, favorable.
All right, House Bill 259. Statewide data collection, DNA. Oh, recognize the Senator from Montgomery County.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. HB 259 is a departmental bill that alters the circumstances in which a DNA sample must be collected and stored in the statewide DNA database. It alters the individuals required to collect DNA samples, and it clarifies when a DNA sample may be tested. It passed out of committee unanimously. It is similar to Senate Bill 202, which passed this body unanimously. There are no committee amendments. I move the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 259 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 445, Delegate Hill, Criminal Law, Interference with the Public Safety Answering Point, Penalties, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the Vice Chair as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is identical to SB 81. It criminalizes denial of service cyber attacks against state facilities. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 conforms the bill to Senate Bill 81. Mr. President, I move the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 445 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 616, Delegate Hutchinson, Criminal Law, Destroying Funerary Objects and Cemetery Elements, Statute of Limitations and Prohibition, favorable with two amendments.
Recognize the Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, colleagues, House Bill 616 has been amended to be identical to Senate Bill 421, which passed the Senate 44-0. Mr. President, there are two amendments. One is technical. Number two conforms to Senate Bill 421. I move that we pass the committee report with both amendments.
All right, the floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 616 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to now report number 30. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 4, Delegate Smith, restrictions on use, solar collector systems, alteration, favorable.
Solar collector. Senator from the 26th.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 120 that passed the Senate 33-14. The bill alters statutory provisions that prohibit unreasonable restrictions on land use related to the installation of a solar collector system under specific circumstances. The bill specifies that a restriction is unreasonable if it increases the installation cost of the system by at least 5% over the projected cost of the initially proposed installation. Number two, reduces the energy generated by the solar collector system by at least 10% below the projected energy generation in the initial proposal. The bill further specifies actions that a community association may take in regard to the installation of solar collector systems in the common areas or common elements in the development. There are no committee amendments. Ask for favorable report on the bill.
All right, the floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 4 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 124, Delegate Rosenberg, residential property, assignment of contracts of sales, disclosure requirements and recession, favorable.
Recognizing the vice chair as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is similar to Senate Bill 160, which passed this chamber unanimously. It's simply a disclosure bill for real estate transactions in which wholesalers are taking part. There are no committee amendments. Mr. President, I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 124 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 292, Delegate Holmes, Cooperative Housing Corporations, Condominiums, and Homeowners Association, funding of reserve accounts and preparation of funding plans, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the senator from the 26th as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is identical to Bill 63 that passed the Senate 38-6. The bill makes various changes related to the requirements for cooperative housing corporations, condominiums, and homeowners associations, collectively known as common ownership communities, to fund reserve accounts. Among the other provisions, the bill number one requires the governing body to prepare a specific funding plan. Number two extends from 3 to 5 years the amount of time after an initial reserve study that such entities have to attain the recommended annual reserve funding level. And number three authorizes common ownership communities to declare financial hardships and deviate from existing funding requirements under certain circumstances. There is one committee amendment authorizes a common ownership community to use money from the reserve fund for purposes other than those specified in the funding plan if the funds are repaid to the reserve fund within 5 years. Move favorable on the bill and the committee amendment.
All right, the floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, recognizing the minority whip.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask that the bill and the amendment lie over under the rule. I'd like to look at it a little more closely.
Okay. All right, Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing the amendment with me. Thank you.
All right. Oh, separate. Okay. We'll take. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Senator.
I've got amendments. I work with the floor leader, with the House sponsor also, so we're going to work through that and hopefully we'll get addressed for tomorrow.
Great. All right. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 315, Delegate Cardin, Task Force to Study Fiduciary Education in Maryland, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is similar to Senate Bill 22 that passed the Senate 45-0. This bill establishes a task force to study fiduciary adjudication in Maryland. By January 1st, 2026, the task force must report its findings and recommendations to the Governor of the General Assembly. There's one committee amendment which contains three components. First, it alters the tasks of the committee to require the task force to analyze the efficiency of the procedures for adjudicating contested and uncontested matters in the orphans courts and circuit courts. Secondly, it requires the Department of Legislative Services, in conjunction with the Maryland State Bar Association, to staff the task force. And finally, it makes a non-voting member the member of the task force who must be a judge of a circuit court that sits as the orphans court. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I hereby move for the adoption of the committee amendment as well as the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 315 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 347, Delegate Holmes, Real Property, Recordation and Land Records Requirements, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 25th is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is similar to Senate Bill 150 that passed the Senate 47-0. The bill generally alters various statutory provisions related to the filing, maintenance, and transmittal of land records. Among other provisions, the bill alters certain formatting requirements, authorizes the acceptance of documents received through an electronic recordation system, authorizes the court clerks to assess additional fees for recordation and subdivision plats if required by local law, repeals certain requirements and references related to bound books and microfilm, and makes numerous stylistic and technical changes. There is one committee amendment, and that amendment is technical. Please move the amendment.
Senator moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 347 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 755, Delegate Foley, Common Ownership Communities, Recreational Common Areas, Sensitive Information as a Condition for Access, favorable.
Recognized the senator from the 25th is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is similar to Senate Bill 540 that passed the Senate 45-0. The bill prohibits a cooperative housing corporation, condominium association, or homeowners association from requiring certain sensitive information from a member, owner, or occupant, or the guest or child such of an individual as a condition for accessing or using recreational common areas. Sensitive information means an individual's social security card or number, taxpayer ID, birth certificate or racial ethnic origin, national origin, citizenship or immigration status, religious or philosophical beliefs, or medical records. Sensitive information does not include an individual's government-issued photo ID. There are no committee amendments. Move the bill, please.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 755 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 788, Judiciary Committee, Judiciary Department, Commission on Judicial Disabilities, Temporary Appointment, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 34th is the floor leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 788 is quite similar to Senate Bill 619 that passed out of this chamber 47-0. It proposes a constitutional amendment authorizing the Commission on Judicial Disabilities to recall a former member to serve as a temporary substitute member or request the governor do the same. There were no committee amendments. The vote was unanimous. Move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 788 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 796, Delegate Long, Real Property, Filing Fee for Residential Mortgage Foreclosure, Increase, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 44th.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This bill is identical to Senate Bill 566 that passed the Senate 33-14. This bill increases from $300 to $450 the filing fee that must accompany an order or docket or complaint to foreclose a mortgage or a deed of trust on residential properties. There are no committee amendments. I move the committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Yes, recognize the minority leader on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The floor leader would yield, please.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. Looking at this, originally 300 went to 600, got brought down to 450. Accurate. Okay. Can you just tell us again where this money, where these fees go?
To the Maryland Housing Counseling Fund Program, which was something that was created in the aftermath of the Great Recession back in 2008. So that's when this was created. So the filing fees have not increased since 2008. So I think our committee, when they brought it down from 600 to 450, had looked at inflation and kind of thought that was the right spot to put it.
Okay, and this fund uses they use this funds for what?
To help with housing counseling and those types of services that people may be in need of, foreclosure counseling, all that sort of thing.
And this is under DHCD?
Yes, sir.
And I saw their letter of support, but are they saying that there's not enough money in this fund to effectively do what they're trying to do?
I believe that was one of their arguments, that the funding is dwindling. So the organizations that are providing these services, they don't have the resources to provide them at the level that they should be providing them.
Right, but one of the reasons I say it's dwindling is because the number of foreclosures are down, right? Or decreasing?
That is correct. Yep, that is correct.
So wouldn't that be more the reason on why there are less funds rather than them effective? I'm trying to see, are they effectively using these funds, or is foreclosures going down, which could be a result of a number of different things, and therefore
it could be all of the above, as you just mentioned.
Revenues aren't there.
Right.
So, okay. And then was there opposition to this in the committee?
I believe there was.
Probably just the bankers.
The bankers originally came in opposition when the fee was higher.
When the fee was higher. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr.
Appreciate
Floor
it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the favorable report, any further discussion? Any objections to the report? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 796 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1152, Delegate Stein, Real Property, Residential Rental Property, Pet Policy Disclosure, Pet Policy Transparency Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill is similar to Senate Bill 896 that passed the Senate 41-6. This bill requires that a landlord of any residential property provide a link to the property's pet policy on the property's website if applicable. A written copy or summary of the pet policy must also be included in any rental application form. There are 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 just clarifies that if the landlord does not have a website, they do not have to create a website. They only have to put the pet policy up if they have a website. Move the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1152 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, that does it for today. We're going to call it there. Let's see. We've got a busy week, so we've got the budget coming over. We know that we'll have by Friday we'll have the budget report on Friday. So we got plenty of time for House Bill third readers, and hope we can see some Senate bills moving too at the same time. Just we'll keep everything moving together. All right, let's hear from the Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance will meet at 1 o'clock for bill hearings.
Excellent. Education, Energy, and the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Triple E will meet at 1 p.m. followed for hearings, followed by voting.
All right, hearings, then voting. Vice Chair of Budget and Tax.
Budget and Tax Committee will meet right after session for voting, and after that will be a meeting of the Procurement Subcommittee.
Voting and then procurement. Excellent. Judicial proceedings.
Thank you, very much, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet today at 1 p.m. for bill hearings, followed by a voting session.
Excellent. Voting and hearings. All right. Other standing committees? Select committees? Yes, Baltimore City delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Baltimore City delegation meeting in the Silver Room for a voting session and a brief hearing.
Excellent. Any other
after the session, like after the session.
Immediately following session. Great. Yep. So any additional? Yes, Prince George's County delegation.
Yes, Mr. President. We thought we'd reserve the Silver Room, so we'll pick another colored room for our quick delegation meeting right after session.
Old Senate Chamber?
Old Senate Chamber. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Any further announcements? Caucuses, delegation? Yes, Senator from the 38th.
This is a general announcement.
Senator, may
Would that be
proceed.
appropriate? Just wanted to invite all my colleagues on Friday morning. The Salisbury Children's Choir is coming all the way up to Annapolis, and they will be performing at 10 o'clock in the Miller Building Rotunda. And if you can stop by, or your staff could stop by to support them, they have performed with other nationally recognized choirs, so we want to give them a warm welcome when they come up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. Yes, Senator from District 6.
Mr. President, I have some sad news, just to say, just a brief moment. A dear friend, at times they would come down here and they would have events with our state police. And it's just sad to say, Mr. Costas Transfolos, 85 years of age, had passed away from carbon monoxide poisoning. Him and his wife, they were in their house at the time, but he did pass, 85 years of age. As everybody knows, Costa's Inn, great place to have great food and great time, great fellowship. He was always a dear friend, him and his son, and he will be dearly, dearly missed. He was expanding his business to Timonium, and he was looking forward to that. So I hope and pray that if you take a moment of time to remember and to pray for the Costas family at this time of loss. And if we could end the session in his name, if it's possible, Mr. President, I know the family will be honored in that. Yes, his name is, it's a hard name, but Costas Transfolos. It's a hard name, yes. Yeah. Triantafilos.
Yes, excellent. Yes. Certainly.
And
we'll make sure that we have the
Thank you,
have
Mr.
the name. Wonderful. All right. Recognize the senator from District 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a moment, point of personal privilege.
Senator may proceed.
It's also another kind of a sad note. Today marks what's starting the end of the flying wing of the Maryland Air National Guard. The A-10s that many of us know, that actually the plane was built in Hagerstown, the first of the A-10 actually fly out today to what's called referred to as the Boneyard, Davis-Monmouth Air Force Base. The Maryland Air National Guard actually started in 1921 at, ironically, just where you guys were this morning, just outside of where the Key Bridge was built. But unfortunately, the A-10 has become an aged plane. The technology has not kept up with what today is considered the fifth generation aircraft. Even though it's great for the mission it flies now with ground forces, it just can't compete against fifth generation aircraft. We don't have a continuing mission. I flew in the 135th, which was the C-130s, the C-27s, which unfortunately were divested. But Congress and the Pentagon has decided not to give us a flying continuing mission. I will tell you, our congressional delegation is fighting very hard to get us one. Our TAG has been fighting, but as of right now, we don't have one. So unfortunately today kind of marks the beginning of the end for a flying wing for the Maryland Air National Guard, which is kind of one of the first to have a flying mission, and unfortunately will be one of the first to not have one unless we can change it. So I just want to kind of take that memorialize that today could be the start of the end unless our congressional delegation keeps fighting the way they have been, and I want to thank them for that. I know our governor has been fighting hard. We thought we had a glimmer of hope back in January, right after Christmas. Many had heard that the D.C. National Guard was going to be the F-16s up there. Didn't turn out, didn't pan out. That's not happening. So people say to me, oh, we're getting the F-16s. No, not happening. That's the D.C. National Guard. They have to stay there because what's called the Scramble Mission for D.C., supporting the Pentagon, the White House, should any plane intercept that airspace. But as of right now, Mr. President, hopefully we get something and the flying wing of the Maryland National Guard does not discontinue. So with that, Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. No, it's an unfortunate development, very, very much so. A-10's been a staple. All right, any further announcements? If not, let's do a quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the, Madam Majority Leader, take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session, recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Thursday, March 27th at 10 a.m., ending today with, in honor of Kostas Triantafylos. Close?
Yes.
Thank
that's
you.
it. All right, without objection, so ordered. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you tomorrow.